Hey traders, welcome back to another daily profit and loss recap video. Today I was able to make $2,593 with two trades, one of them being a really solid winning trade with the stock SDA, and one of them being a very small losing trade with the stock MRKR. So in this video I'm going to break down my thought process behind these trades, talk about how I was able to find SDA before it had a big run, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the first trade, which was MRKR. MRKR, if you've been watching my recent profit and loss recap videos, you can see this is kind of a pretty standard trade for me, being that it is gapping up in pre-market. I like to look for these stocks that are gapping up in pre-market to look for that continuation during the market hours. And in this case, it ended up kind of just failing. We could see there is pretty clearly a strong level of resistance going on here in the mid 190s, all pre-market, and then again at the market open, it rejects that level other than this quick false breakout we see here early in pre-market. So my thought process in entering this trade was simply that I was looking for a breakout above that resistance level, and typically what I would do is wait for a resistance level to clear before I get in. But what I saw happening here was that at the market open, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 candles all back to back that held the $1.76 level. So I was seeing that this was kind of starting to form a little bit of support here at the market open, and it then started to push back above the VWAP very briefly. So I started to build into a little bit of a position here. I ended up with 2,000 shares total on this trade. And again, all I was looking for was that this was going to hold this morning low. It was going to start forming some higher highs and higher lows. And then I was going to sell into a pop above the pre-market highs and above this 195 resistance area. Instead, I ended up taking a really small loss on this trade of just $91. And if I wouldn't have gotten into the SDA trade, which I'm going to cover in just a moment, I would have actually taken a bigger loss on this trade because my original risk level was all the way down here in the 160s. And most likely I would have stuck to my plan and held until it fell all the way down to that area. But once I sold my shares in SDA, I made a really solid profit on that trade. And I just didn't see the potential in MRKR anymore at that point. So I decided to take a very small loss on this trade and take away the risk of giving back a bunch of the profits that I made on my SDA trade. And that also kind of leads me to an important lesson that I want to share with you guys. And that is the fact that you don't always have to use necessarily a price when it comes to managing risk. You can also use a time frame. For me, in my experience, all of my better trades happen relatively quickly after I get into them. So if I'm in a trade for 20-30 minutes and it's still kind of trading sideways or it's still moving against me just a little bit, but it hasn't quite reached my risk level, odds are it's going to end up reaching my risk level anyway. So a lot of times in those cases, it can be better to just get out of the trade immediately and take a small loss on it rather than have it move against you all the way until it hits your risk level. Okay, and that's pretty much what happened here as I was in the SDA trade. The stock kind of was just trading sideways, moving against me a little bit. And once I got out of the SDA trade, I realized that I was in the trade with MRKR for a little bit longer than I initially planned, and it still wasn't moving in my favor, so I took that small $91 loss. Anyway, moving on to the bigger trade for me today, this was a really solid profit. On this trade alone, I ended up making $2,684 in profits, and this was one that was straight out of the trade plans in the Market Master group. If you watched yesterday's profit and loss recap video, I traded this stock yesterday for a profit as well. And if we take a quick look at the trade plans, SDA, I posted solid trade opportunity on Tuesday from the previous day's plans and covered in the most recent profit and loss recap video, essentially reiterating the same plans as this is continuing to climb higher and higher and maybe setting up for a big squeeze before it finally reverses to the downside. Would love another morning red to green move to buy into on Wednesday. Now, for those of you who don't know, a red to green move is simply when a stock opens below the previous day's closing price and then it goes green for the day and it rises above that closing price. That is known as a red to green move. A lot of times this can be a good indicator that a stock is picking up some momentum for the day and that buyers are back in control for the stock. So that can be a really good indicator to get into a trade. And that's exactly what I did the previous day as well when I traded this stock for a solid profit. So I was looking to kind of repeat that same process today. So with that being said, the previous day's close on this was $19.49. And if we go ahead and just draw that area here on the chart, this line is going to represent the previous day's closing price. So once it starts to go red to green and it starts to break above that price, that is kind of what we were looking for with the trade plans here to get into this trade. And very quickly, I just want to give a quick shout out to Murph in the trading group. Murph was the one that kind of notified me that this was going red to green. It was posted at 10:05 a.m., pretty much as soon as it started to go red to green for the day. I was preoccupied with the trade in MRKR, and I had a few other stocks that I was watching for potential gap and goes this morning. So SDA, although it was in the trade plans, was not at the top of my watch list at the time. But thanks to Murph, I was able to find this very quickly once it did go red to green, and I started to build into a position here. And the thing about this stock is that it is a very low volume generally stock. It trades with pretty wide spreads, and it can be difficult to buy and sell at the prices that you want to buy and sell at. So because of that, I wasn't able to build into a full position, and there was a few times where I actually had to chase a little bit to add into my position. And with that being said, I ended up with a total of 626 shares on this trade, and that's just because of the fact that I was only getting partial fills on a lot of my orders. But I took my initial entry here as it was initially going red to green, just under $22 per share. I added some more shares along the way, and I want to mention that the reason that I was adding into this position rather than taking quick profits the way that I did the previous day is because the volume in this case is much different from the volume that we saw the previous day. We could see it's climbing higher and higher and higher, and at the same time the volume is also climbing higher and higher and higher, which was not the case the previous day. If we take a look at the price action then, the only time there was any volume was when we got a quick spike to the upside, and then the following candles the volume would immediately drop back down. So that's why I was much quicker to lock in profits on the trade the previous day. But when I saw that the volume was actually sustaining and it was picking up and building momentum, that is what led me to be a little bit more patient with this trade. And that's why I started to add into this position. I was adding some shares all the way up at about $24, I think, which at that point was already 20% or so above the previous day's closing price. So when it was all said and done, I was locking in some profits around 25. I locked in some profits around 27. And then after we got this halt here, the halt ended, the stock opened up over $30 per share. And you can see we started to get some volume exhaustion. I sold the rest of my shares up here in the 32 area, which ended up being pretty much a perfect exit on this trade. At the same time that I locked in these profits, I also shared with the Market Master group that I was selling as well. And we can see from there, it ended up selling off and is now getting dumped to the downside. And that's why it's so important to have trade plans, because I'm sure there were people that didn't have this on their radar until it was up to, $30 per share or higher, and they started to chase the stock. And next thing they know, about an hour later, the price is down over 50% from where it previously was. So when it was all said and done on this trade alone, I locked in $2,684, but with the $91 loss from MRKR factored in, I ended up with $2,593 in profits for today. I'm also very happy to see that some traders in the group made some money on this trade as well. Murph, the one that pointed out the red to green move, was able to make $647 on this trade as well. We also had some profits from L. Gregor 2. D-Rod-X actually took the opposite side of this trade and started to short sell once the momentum shifted to the downside. And D-Rod-X was able to make $550 trading SDA. So this is what it's all about, and this is why it's so important to have a group of traders around you, because even though SDA was on my watch list, I probably would have missed out on a big portion of my profits if Murph didn't point out the fact that it was going red to green. And it's a great reminder that no matter where you're at in your trading journey, it's very, very difficult to keep track of all of the potential trades, and having multiple sets of eyes on the market and multiple people working together in a trading group is, in my opinion, the best way to catch these moves early on and make some really solid profits on them. So anyway, those were my 2 trades today. Hopefully you found some value in this video and enjoyed the recap. If you did, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to hear about the stocks that I'm trading in real time and you want the daily trade plans to find these types of trades, there's going to be a link down below in the description to get signed up to the Market Master group, and your first week will be 100% free. Anyway, thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and good luck with your trading.